Zilli. You're watching Life Stories. Today, my guest is Howard Fine, acting coach and author of Fine on Acting. Howard, welcome to Life Stories.
Everything sounds better with a British accent. Is that just my bias, or you sound great?
It's your bias. Thank you.
It is. You made me sound important. Thank you.
So speaking of accents, where did you grow up?
It's a severe accent. I grew up in Cranston, Rhode Island, but the locals will say Cranston. That is the local accent. So go ahead.
So what was that like growing up in Cranston?
Actually, it was suburbia. It was a neighborhood. You could ride your bikes. Everyone's mother watched over every child in the neighborhood. If you misbehaved, it would get right back to your mom. So it was a community, and I appreciated growing up with that.
Brothers, sisters?
I'm the youngest of 5 by 8 years. I was a mistake. And my mother was so overwhelmed. She had my eldest brother right away, and then my sister, who's 10 years older than I am, then the twins, and then, oh my goodness, here I came. So my mother enlisted my grandmother to help raise me quite a bit.
And what was that like?
I was very close to my grandmother. My mother's side of the family were all Holocaust survivors, and I was with my grandmother a lot, so I spoke German before I spoke English. And maybe that's why I never quite got the Rhode Island accent, because I was confused anyway.
And cooking, what was your favorite dish?
My grandmother,
yeah,
she was an amazing cook. Stuffed cabbage and another dish, German dish, Kreppel. In Yiddish, they call it Kreplach. Very much a Jewish version of a wonton. But my grandmother used to have to roll the dough for so long to make them. And it was hard for her. She got older, but she would always make me my favorite.
And growing up, did you have TV at home, theater?
I did have TV. My family didn't know much about theater. My dad owned a gas station. Actually, he was so mechanically inclined, and I inherited none of that skill. So I grew up thinking I wasn't very bright because I wasn't mechanical. But I saw my first play, one in school and one I went to, which ended up being my high school drama director's production of Oliver. And that, once I saw live theater, it so spoke to me, and I thought, oh my goodness, I found home, I think.
So what did you do when you had that feeling? How long did it take you to act upon that?
A while, because I didn't know how one would act upon that. When I got to high school, there was a conflict between German and French, and I had to drop one of them, so I kept German. And then I thought, oh, introduction to theater, probably a history class. And I walked in, and they had their shoes off, and they were on the stage doing some improv. And I felt, oh my goodness, I'm home. And that course in high school changed my life.
In what way did it most impact your life?
My high school drama director, who understood Uta Hagen's work, taught from her first book, Respect for Acting. So I had 3 years of Hagen training already in high school, and he spotted a directing talent in me. And he gave me my first play to direct when I was 16. And that
what
changed
play was that?
It was Edward Albee's The Sandbox. And I staged it, I don't know where I got any of these ideas. I staged it outside as the sun was setting, the violinist was on the roof. And I thought, oh my goodness, this is so interesting to create in this way. I enjoyed acting, but I always felt I was a stronger director, coach.
And then where did you go next?
As an undergraduate to Rhode Island College, which was the state college. Actually, Viola Davis came out of Rhode Island College years after me. I'm a bit more mature. But it was a wonderful program, and that took me forward. And then I went to grad school at Emerson College in Boston, then on to New York, and then from New York to LA.
So can you share a little bit about your experience in New York? Were there any challenging times?
Yeah.
You want to share a
Sure.
memorable, challenging time where you overcame that adversity?
Of course. Well, when I first got to New York, first of all, I was so naive. My best friend, David Corey, who's the voice director at our studio and who you know, he was meeting me at the train station. And I got off the train, and there was a lovely porter there who said, may I help you? And I put all my luggage, including all the money I had in the world, right on the stand. And he said, I'll meet you upstairs. So I went upstairs, and David said, where's your stuff? I said, well, I gave it to the porter. He said, they don't have porters here. He ran, he caught the guy on the street, and he got all my stuff back. But that's how naive I was visiting Oz, right? I came from Cranston, Rhode Island. But I got a job, I found a place to live, and then I sent out my resume, and I got hired at AMDA, the American Musical and Dramatic Academy, to teach. They gave me the worst class the school had ever had. They had driven the previous head of the acting department into an early retirement. They were spoiled, difficult. And I walked in, and they did monologues for me, and I said, these monologues are just disgrace. Here are my specific notes. And I had the wrong notepad. I had picked up the wrong notepad leaving the theater. And I was so frozen. Today it would be, oh, let me get my notepad, I got the wrong one. I had to give notes off the top of my head. And in any case, I turned that class around. And at the end of the semester, there they were in a straight line, waiting to go into the theater, all dressed in black, perfect ladies and gentlemen. And they went in and did really good work. And that night, the head of the studio asked me to head the acting department. I was 24 when that happened.
Wow. So 24, New York. How did you get out to Los Angeles?
It's quite a story.
I want to hear it.
I wanted to move to LA. I had no money. I was broke. And my best friend since college won the New York lottery. And he didn't owe anything to me at all. We were friends. But he said, guess what? You can quit your job. We can move to Los Angeles. And he moved me here in 1985. And that gave me the opportunity to take meetings and build up what became the referral network for the studio. So
how did you, I mean, coming to Los Angeles, knowing no one, a tough town.
Yes.
How did you build that referral network? Can you explain a bit more about what that means, the referral network?
Sure. I sent out a letter of introduction to agents and managers, and then I followed up with a phone call. And I said, I've just moved from New York. I'm going to be training actors. I'd love to hear your input in terms of what you think is needed in the training. And one of the first agents that agreed to meet with me, Barry Freed, who had been at ICM, and then he opened his own office. We had a nice chat, and then he said, my clients are probably too advanced for you. And I said, okay. And I don't know where some of these things came from. I said, send me your worst person who you think you're going to drop. I'll teach them for free. He said, okay, because he had nothing to lose. He did. I turned that actor around, who's still a working actor today. He doesn't know he's the one. But anyway, I turned his work around, and then Barry sent me every single client off his client list, and it just built and built and built from there. Who
are some of the most notable names that you have worked with?
Yeah, it's a cool list over the years. Part of my great pride is watching somebody start from the beginning and then ascend the Oscar podium. That includes Jared Leto, Will Smith, Brad Pitt, Bradley Cooper. It's a good list. So
yes,
yeah,
it's prolific. So let's move forward in time. Future. We might go all over the place here.
I love it.
So future, 10 years from now. Where do you see yourself with you've already done so much, but what do you see next?
I hope I'm alive, so that would be the first thing that I think would be important. I tend not to do that, and I try to stay positive and spiritual on those levels, and I think may good things come, but I don't always know what those good things will be. I didn't know I was going to have a studio in Australia. That happened. I really didn't do anything. Someone in Australia read my book. They invited me to come teach a master class, and then they offered to create the studio there. So I think sometimes we have to be open rather than so driven and I want that.
So perhaps maybe I need to ask this way. How would you say your message will have evolved in terms of how you're helping people?
I hope I'm wiser in 10 years. There's a Talmudic teaching If you're not going to be better tomorrow than you were today, what need have you of tomorrow? And I think that's a good lesson. So I hope to grow. I can't predict some of those ways. I think my empathy has grown over the years. I think as I understand the human condition and my own vulnerabilities and flaws, I've become more empathetic. And I think as I pick up scripts, I can put myself in the shoes of the different characters as I work with the actors.
When was a time where you really felt your empathy ramp up at another level?
It is in the ability to see myself. The more work I've done on myself, the more I see myself in every character. And I try to teach actors that there's no such thing as creating a character. Every character exists inside of us. Because my students will say to me, I know someone who's exactly this way. And I say, yeah, you look at them in the mirror every day. Because it's so easy to judge other human beings. And the reason we judge people is we fail to see ourselves in them.
Was there a couple of tools that you go to on a regular basis to be able to see more of yourself?
It is constant self-examination. You have to be willing to look at yourself and come out of every situation and think it through. And as Socrates said, the unexamined life is not worth living. And I think that's my motto. You have to be willing to examine your life, your own behavior, and see where you can improve. So it's a constant journey for me.
When you look at the arc of your life from past to present, what is the greatest evolution lesson that you see in understanding yourself?
I think it is in this idea of being goal-oriented. When I was younger, I had very clear and very specific things that I wanted to accomplish. And it just doesn't happen quite that way. My biggest dream was to direct on Broadway. And when I left New York, I gave that up because I thought, well, that's not going to happen now. And one Thanksgiving, I was visiting my family in Rhode Island. I had just gone to watch the high school band rehearse. And there's a message on my machine from Michael Chiklis, my friend and student. I call him and he said, I've just been hired to star in Defending the Caveman on Broadway. Do you want to direct it? Okay. And that's how that happened. That's how.
Are you scared?
Of course I was scared. Anybody who tells you they're not scared is lying or in denial of some kind. Everything scares me. And then I go forward from there.
So something that you say, I have to have you share it. Can you talk more about fear and how you transform fear?
Yeah.
Because I think I know that helped me a lot in getting to study with you.
Oh, it was delightful having you in class, Joanne. I loved having you in class. I wrote a whole chapter on nerves because we tend to think that being nervous is a bad thing, that we shouldn't be nervous. And that's wrong. If we're not nervous, it means we don't care. We should care. If we stop caring, we should quit. But it's what you do with the nerves. We have to channel nerves into excitement, into adventure, into thrill. And if anybody denies their nerves and says, well, I'm not nervous, or you get the worst advice from people. People will say, don't be nervous. Oh, gee, I hadn't thought of that. Don't be nervous. Or picture people in uncompromising positions, or no. It's when I'm nervous, my attention is on myself in a self-judgmental way. How to handle nerves is to take attention off yourself. So was I nervous coming here today? Of course. We've worked together, and I don't know what questions you're going to ask me, and I want to do well for you, and I hope to represent the studio well and not have it closed. All those things are true. But I have to breathe, and I have to put my attention on you and listen to you, and then I'm beginning to be in the flow rather than frozen by fear. And I have to say, my nerves are really excitement.
It's brilliant.
Thank you.
So 5 people, the wind beneath your wings.
It's more than 5.
Yes.
I heard a sermon once on there's no such thing as a self-made man. And that is true. And my friend and rabbi, Joseph Telushkin, teaches gratitude is the prerequisite to happiness. So I check in with gratitude and who I'm grateful for, and that's a lot of people. But key, I dedicated my book to my grandmother. My grandmother, Julia Brandt, thought I could do no wrong. Now, it was never true, of course, but I remember taking her for my first ride when I was 16 in my car, which was a Ford Fairlane, which didn't have power steering. It was a clunker. And she said she compared it to what she knew, which was a Pullman wagon, the best train. And I was petrified, and she made me feel as if I could do anything. And my grandmother's always with me. My high school drama director, Don Babbitt, who spotted my directing talent. My college professor, Raymond Picozzi, who made me his assistant and gave me enormous responsibilities that were ahead of me, but I did it. My best friend, David Corey, who, when he won the lottery, believed enough in me to move me to Los Angeles and give me this chance. And really, if I really cite one more person, it was Marge Eubank. Marge was the person who taught me how to teach. And I have to mention my mentor, Uta Hagen, because I'm derivative so much of her work. So there's 6, and that's just starting. I'm grateful for the people in my life who continue to push me and urge me on.
My last question to you, Howard. How do you want to be remembered?
First of all, it would be a thrill to be remembered at all. Also for something positive, I hope, not in a terrible way. I hope I've made a contribution to my field, that I run my leg of a relay that began with Stanislavski, was carried forward by Uta Hagen. I hope I've carried the craft forward, the study of the craft, and I hope I leave it better than I found it, and that someone can pick up from my teachings and take it forward.
Well, you have been an absolute inspiration to me, and you're always in my heart. I'm Joanna Garzilli. You're watching Life Stories. Today, my guest was Howard Fine, author of Fine on Acting. We look forward to you tuning in next time.